Okay guys, we're back with a follow-up video and hopefully a final video of the Delco Light Plant. If you haven't seen the previous videos, go back in my video list, take a look, and you'll see where we overhauled this thing, repaired it, it was stuck, and now it has found a new owner, and I am with him here at the Tipton, Indiana gas engine show, and he has completely got this thing running. He's got batteries underneath here, runs on 32 volts. He's got a power panel on it. He runs a coffee pot with it. He's got it mounted on this cool little cart. And it couldn't have a better owner that would love it any more than he has. I'm going to have him come on here and talk and explain a little bit about it and explain how it works, because all the thing I did was work on the inside of it, get it freed up. Okay, so we've got the door open on it here. We're going to take a look inside, and Mike, the electrical genius that got this thing going, is going to explain to us a little bit about what's going on. What we got going here, Mike?
Well, this is a motor and a generator. So the motor is came to me unstuck and ready to work. So the next thing was to figure out how all of this worked electronically. The only clue we had is the wiring diagram that was on the inside cover of the generator. And you can see inside the generator there's a once the door is open, there are a series of solenoids and contactors and relays. So all the operation of this device is done strictly without any active devices, and there are no semiconductors, there's no vacuum tubes. It's all just done with coils and contactors. So I spent quite a lot of time converting the wiring diagram into a schematic that I could kind of understand. So I've created a schematic to sort of show how this thing works. This allows, there are several functions that this thing is doing. One is to run the engine, and the other is to run the generator, charge the batteries, and the generator also has the feature that it can be used to start the motor. So among the features that the contactors and relays and solenoids control is the motor, control of the motor. So there is a solenoid for the choke, there's a solenoid for the throttle, and there's a contactor that switches in and out the series winding on the generator. The series winding is used as the winding for the motor function. So you can use the generator as a motor to start the Delco Light system. So after spending a lot of time confirming that as best I could that all the wiring and the relays and the coils and the contactors were working, and really they were in pretty pristine condition, the next thing to do was to put some gas in the fuel tank and try to get it to run. And it actually fired up and ran pretty quickly. There was a few problems that became evident once we started to get it working. One was the fuel pump head, which is actually an automotive fuel pump, very similar to a fuel pump that you might see on a Farmall F20 tractor and some of the early 20s automotive vehicles. It's an AC fuel pump. The diaphragm was bad, that had to be a new one had to be created and refurnished, and obviously there was some leaking around the sediment bulb and stuff like that. Once that was all kind of resolved and we were able to create a fuel tank on the cart and plumb to it. And the way this carburetor works is it doesn't have a float bowl. It just the fuel pump keeps pumping into a well, and then there's an overflow and a return back to the gas tank. So you small engine people probably understand that much better than I do. After the machine was running for a while, we did have a failure. The high voltage side of the ignition coil failed, and I wasn't getting spark any longer. Fortunately, the resistance on the primary of the coil was the same as a automotive 6-volt coil that might be used in a truck or a car. So I was able to wire in an automotive coil and use the same dropping resistor that was used with the previous coil, because as is obviously you're aware, this is a 32 volt system, so we had to drop the voltage. The voltage is dropped down to appropriate voltage for the coil.
And we're looking at your new condenser here too. That looks like a kind of a modern condenser, is it?
Yes, the condenser was something that I pulled out of my parts box, and it was installed where the points are. The original condenser was actually inside the tube that held the ignition coil, but that all had to go away once the ignition coil failed.
Very cool. All right, let's see how it runs now. Okay, continuing on. Before we start it up, what were these actually used for, Mike?
Well, before rural electrification, these were used in farms and rural homesteads to provide lighting and other electrical and powering other electrical devices, motors and stuff like that. To replace kerosene lamps and sort of modernize the rural area to keep up with the cities. So these things, the lights were generally provided, the power came from the battery pack, and then once a week or so you would have to charge up the batteries, and then you would go down to wherever this was located in your basement or in your powerhouse, and you'd flip the switch to start up the engine.
It's charging the batteries now, right?
Yes.
So it's charging at that rate?
Yes.
Okay. And once they get charged, they'll automatically shut off?
Some of the models were that way, but I don't believe this one is that way.
Okay.
I know on some of the literature I read, they would say, well, you put this much fuel in the tank, and when it's out of fuel, you know it's charged, I guess. Okay.
So, okay, let's imagine we've got this thing in our basement. We've got our batteries hooked up. Night has fallen, and we want to turn a light on. We can turn a light on, or if it's early morning, we want to run the coffee pot. Of course, I don't think this is the coffee pot they used back then, is it, Mike?
No.
This is just for demonstration purposes, but we're going to demonstrate now how if you just flip a load on it, it'll automatically start the engine.
So whether it would automatically start the engine depended on whether how large the load was. So if you're just using some lights in the house, you turn those on, it would draw the energy from the battery pack, and everything would be fine, and there would be no need to start the engine. But if you were putting a really large load, like you're going to run a motor to run the cream separator, or do whatever, or perhaps run the coffee pot, then when you attach that load, it would start the engine automatically. And you can see, although it really isn't charging the battery, it isn't discharging either.
And we'll have coffee here in a little bit. All right, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up on this one. We'll shut her down, and it's a great demonstration. Mike has done a great job of putting this thing to use and demonstrating it like it's supposed to be, like it was supposed to be used. So, hey, thanks for watching. If you like what we're doing, subscribe, leave a comment below. If you got any Delco Light stories, let's talk about it in the comments below. Catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.